Hi, I'm Mark Lynn. I'm the head of executive advisory and strategy at NetSync. I've been doing this for 25 plus years, focusing largely on AI and cybersecurity. I'm a four-time CIO and CISO, and I'm really looking forward to spending time and talking both with Nick and Mark. Nick Biasini has spent more than 2 decades in information security. Today, he serves as the head of outreach for Cisco Talos, where he has a team of threat researchers focused on identifying and exposing emerging cyber threats from both nation-state actors and criminal organizations. Nick began his career defending the national aerospace and has held a range of technical roles across both public and private sectors. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
And next is Mark Jabian. He's a cybersecurity practice manager here at NetSync with more than 20 years of experience in cybersecurity, network architecture, data center, virtualization, and storage. He specializes in designing and integrating complex technology environments across multiple platforms and implementing secure, high-performance infrastructures. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about three things with the panel. One is identity, the other is access, and the third will be segmentation. So let's jump right into it. So Nick, I'll pose the first question to you. So when we're talking about identity, identity today in our modern crazy world with agents and IoT and everything, what is it all coming to?
It's a lot. There's a lot of different facets to this landscape now, and adversaries are very keen on attacking and trying to leverage identity against you, right? They're going to constantly be trying to gather your usernames or passwords. Now they're going to be actively trying to compromise your agents. The goal being, if they can assume your identity or your user or your entity's identity, they can then inflict a lot of damage. And that's really what we're seeing more and more of, is identity is becoming a focus for adversaries, and as such, it's becoming a focus for enterprises.
Yeah, it's interesting. You throw in like AI spoofing, deep fakes, all these that are going on top of what was already a pretty risky environment that required a pretty strong identity stack. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, you were worried about users that were getting pings by Gmail email addresses and giving away the secrets. Now you're faced with a video of your CEO telling you what to do. It's a very tough spot for users to be.
It really is. Mark, what are your thoughts on, kind of the coming of identity and where it's going?
And I think identity is not, when you look at the old way of doing identity, just username and password, now is evolving into more to address the more risk in the rapid change in the landscape, threat landscape. And when you look at it, username and password is no longer viable solution, right? Now it's going into the digital portion. PKI is part of that, the certificate part of that. Looking into making sure that your video verification is not just like clicking yes into the push notification, yes, but you have like adding into security into it, like having code to verify that's really you. Because sometimes when users and attackers really smart, and they will send a lot of push notification, and user normally typical for person is just to accept it. Now they have to add that because of the hack few years ago, that they have to put in the code to verify that's really you that's doing the push.
Yeah, once you've established identity, then we start to get into access, right? Once you've established who they are, where they are, and we kind of know what that is using MFA, et cetera, we kind of step into access. You want to, each of you talk a little about access? Nick, you want to start us?
Access is really, I mean, this is part of it, right? Once you have an identity, your access is kind of sets what you can and can't access inside of an environment. And what we're seeing more and more of is, especially as these identities become compromised or stolen, your access controls are really the last thing that saves you. Making sure that you have the least amount of access required for them to do the task, the agent or the user now do the task associated with their job. That's really going to become increasingly important, especially as agents take over more and more.
Yeah, really what you're pointing out is this idea of privilege access. And when they get that, a bad actor, bad things happen. So having a way to do that, and it's probably not good if your user logs in Austin and then 15 minutes later logs in Shanghai.
Yes.
So it might be, hey, we have Houston, we have an issue, right?
Yeah.
Or Austin, we have an issue in that particular case. Mark, what are your thoughts on that?
with the access and security and identity, it's really important to provide that AAA way in the back, AAA authentication, authorization, and accounting. And you look at those, but now you have to provide MFA portion of that. So when you look at those, it's important, especially in this digital world with the AI, that making sure that that authorization that you provide into that and verification, making sure that that's tamper-proof. Otherwise, if that's compromised, then it's gonna be a game over for the organization. Simple mishap into the identity, it can then leak into providing escalation, privilege escalation to this environment and be able to compromise the whole environment.
Yeah, when you think about it from that perspective, this idea that at some point along the journey here, we're going to be adding in all the IoT devices, and we already are.
Yeah.
But AI agents, there's going to be more of them than there are going to be humans, and I think that's really going to put a strain on what our thoughts are where around identity. Luckily, a lot of manufacturers like Cisco are really kind of thinking ahead on that and positioning us in the right place.
When you look at the OT, most of the OT now, we've seen a few customers now that has OT environment. Before OT, it's really segmented where that environment cannot reach out to the internet. Now with the emergence of AI, they're allowing now that this OT environment allowed to connect outbound. And then that's very important on how you're gonna provide security within that environment, because it's changing the environment access. So for those customers that utilizing OT, they have to look at security as a big thing, making sure that with the emergence of AI, there's still protection going in, even though that environment is isolated. Now it's going out. And how can you address the security portion? Because before it's isolated.
Well, yeah, the change from air gap to this idea of macro and micro segmentation, which is really a much better way ultimately to do that. It's a big piece, and it kind of steps us into our question around segmentation. Nick, you want to talk about how segmentation, especially micro segmentation, could be advantageous for those type of pieces?
So the way I look at segmentation is it's going to save you in an instant. If you have a breach, you have a problem, your segmentation is going to be the thing that's going to save the impact from being as severe as it could be. You know, if you can limit it to one area, if you can limit it to one part of your enterprise, you're always going to be better suited. And then microsegmentation really tries to drive that down to like on a per user basis. So you can try and really minimize. The user is compromised, they're not exposing a huge amount of your enterprise to compromise.
So for an example, that might be a good example. That might be a hospital not letting their PII, and their any other type of personally identifiable information or sensitive information, because it's segmented. We know if it was accessed, when it was accessed. We don't have to look at the entire data foundation and go, we're not sure.
Well, exactly. And if you have proper access controls and proper segmentation, if a user is compromised, you can say, okay, I know that this area wasn't impacted because we have proper segmentation in place. I know there's no way for them to get access to that data.
Yeah, it gets a little trickier though when you get into the IoT part of that. And Mark, you have a big background in that, having done it for a long time. You want to talk a little about how that works with IoT?
With IoT, it's tricky because it's a game changer. Like when you look at it the old ways where, okay,
Air gapping.
they're gapping, and now with everything has to be like connected into AI. You have to make sure that you have provide a proper segmentation with environment, not just in the OT environment, but across. The problem before is that most of the enterprise didn't really look at segmentation because it's a big undertaking. But right now the digital advancement in our industry is really, really fast. And if you don't provide segmentation, you're doing a miscrit for yourself, because security not becoming open if you don't segmentation. If you do segmentation for OT, for servers or different servers, for micro and micro segmentation portion, allowing like defining those what they can communicate, that there is actually providing you a better security posture within environment. For instance, if a user got compromised or an agent got compromised, if you have a proper control with segmentation incorporated into that, you have your identity and control, identity access, the privilege access, and then you have that micro-segmentation. Now you can control what that agent can communicate to. So if that compromise, you can only allow them to access into, okay, you can only access into this environment. And with Cisco, they have this secure access, for example. Secure access, not just looking into, before when you do VPN, it's just when you connect, you can access everything. Now doing into the Cisco, it allows you to own the secure access, allows you to connect per applications, per user, per application. Before you can access user and password, and then you can access the rest of those, the host of the server. Now it's more defined per application. So I think that's if we improve your security posture, that's the biggest way to look at it, is to look at it into the micro level.
Yeah.
And having controls around it.
Yeah, I think a really good example too is there's a big trend now with higher education, energy, utilities, and oil and gas, where OT and IT are coming together, where they don't want to manage two networks separately. They're bringing those together. That segmentation is a big play in that part.
Yes.
Really plays both macro and micro. And I think that's one of the things, one of the trends we're starting to see with our customers is that kind of move. I think that's where it really plays into what you were describing.
The good thing also though is that before it's hard to do that. Yeah. So as the technology is there already, and the technology is mature, it's been there for a long time. So you could do segmentation in the server side of things, and even if it is in segmentation within the server. If you're the same subnet, you used to be able to connect to that server any port. With microsegmentation, you could actually only allow to connect this server to this port, even though they're in the same segment. So looking into the micro level and understanding that now security is it's mature already. It's just a matter of adaptation and be able to provide us to the faster.
Yeah, I think when you look at SCADA and ICS and other forms of industrial IoT, one of the things it's like one of the biggest problems they've always had and had it for years is being able to update those systems, right? They're notoriously out of date, back on versions, but if you have segmentation done right, you're able to do those time-based updates without little to no impact to the rest of your environment or increase your threat level.
Yes.
And that seems to be a very powerful thing. It's a powerful way for change, especially the way Cisco has brought their tools in place to be able to handle that.
One thing too to keep in mind is the way that agentic AI kind of changes the discussion around segmentation and the way you configure it. Because with users, if you were to misconfigure segmentation, a user isn't necessarily going to notice right away that they have a bunch of access that they don't, but an AI agent is going to notice immediately and is going to take advantage of it right away. So that is a drastic change. Whereas before, a miss might not really be that big of a deal. Now it can have an immediate impact as agents become more and more prolific.
Yeah, that awareness, I can see that kind of striking both ways. But that is a very different way of looking at it. It's just going to really change the way strategically people think about their environments and securing their environments. We're up for a lot of change. So is there any thoughts on kind of the future of identity, access, and segmentation?
Ooh, it's tough. It's gonna be drastically different than it is today. A lot of it depends on kind of the speed and how much agentic AI takes off in the near term. If we start seeing it rolling out in big numbers very quickly, you're probably going to see a lot of shifts happen in a very quick amount of time.
What are your thoughts, Mark?
I agree with Nick, and I think it's scary when the way with agentic AI and all of those things without having the proper controls in there. It has to make sure that when you have an AI, right? So agentic AI, for example, that you have to have that connected to all of your security controls. Because if you don't have visibility and control with those, you're probably gonna be, hearing your company in the news, and that's really, really important.
So really what you both are saying is you're not ready for an agentic CISO to tell us that we're wrong? Well, look, I want to thank Cisco and NetSync for putting this on today. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you.